Port Richmond, 1960s, 70s, 80s, and even the 90s have been such an amazing time for everybody, especially in our era. Tonight, on Remembering Port Richmond, I have with me Jen Rispo. Good evening, Jen.
Hey, John, how are you?
I'm doing well. Long time no see.
I know, miss your face. How's that?
I miss the neighborhood. How's it doing down there?
It's still hanging in. I'm still hanging strong. Regentrified, changed a lot, but still here in Port Richmond.
I do want to say one thing, though, Jen. When we were growing up, I just want to mention one person, Catherine Briglio. I'm sure you remember. She was such a strong woman in the community.
Yep.
And I see you now. Like I watch the news. I've seen a lot of the things where you've spoken out for the neighborhood. And to me, you're that person now in Port Richmond. You're the voice that Port Richmond needs.
Yeah, so they say.
So
So they
let's
say.
let's delve into our childhood. How about that?
Awesome.
So Jen, what year were you born?
1973 in Northeastern Hospital.
Oh wow!
I know, coming up on the big 50.
Don't say that.
Yes.
So Jen, how many other siblings did you have?
I'm one of five. I'm the fourth of five. So I have two older brothers, an older sister, and one younger sister.
That's a nice big family.
My dad's one of 16 from Port Richmond. He's the baby.
Oh my God,
Yep.
16!
16th. He was the 16th Rispo, born on Almond Street.
Oh my God.
Yep.
So Jen, how far back as a child can you remember growing up in Port Richmond?
I think I can remember back to kindergarten, Richmond School on Belgrade Street, Miss Colmer. I mean, if anybody went to kindergarten at Richmond School, we all had Miss Colmer. I think my memories go back as far as kindergarten.
And that was, and what grade or what kindergarten
I,
you go to?
I went to Richmond School because Mother
Oh,
Divine Grace Catholic school didn't have kindergarten back then. So I went to Richmond School. We had Miss Colmer, and that was kind of like how things flowed in that immediate area. And then on to Mother Divine Grace, obviously.
I forgot about that because some of the other people that we grew up with went to St. Albert's, and I was like,
Yes. Yep.
okay, okay.
hmm
Wow,
Well, I'm
wow.
not. I'm not Polish. I'm Italian.
Yes. Well, hey, Marston Dardo and Anthony, they went to kindergarten with me. They weren't Polish.
Yes, but then they joined me forces. They were in my class. We only had 14 people graduate in our Mother Divine Grade class in 1987, and Mark and Anthony were two of my classmates.
How many?
14.
Oh
Well,
my
remember, we
God.
were so small. We were built small. That's why we're still strong and small, because we were built to be a very small school because the Italians was a small section. So
Yeah, yeah. And I was the only Polak in an Italian neighborhood.
we allowed you in. You had your pass on Salmon Street.
So growing up in Port Richmond, you're the young Jen Rispo. Saturdays and Sundays were really important to families.
Yes.
Let's go back in time and explain your Saturdays and Sundays on Almond Street.
Well, Almond Street, my father built that home on Almond and Birch. He was in a bad accident in the early in 70s and was in a body cast for some time. And we owned the bar there at Birch and Almond, which was called the Owl's Nest Inn. So when my dad reached his settlement, him and his brothers and sisters decided to build a very big home because we have 5 kids. My dad couldn't work anymore. So we built the Rispo Mansion on Almond and Birch, which was 14 rooms and a pool room, a playroom. So Saturdays and Sundays were pretty busy in the Rispo house. So Dot Longo there every day, Michelle Stevens there every day. So we spent a lot of Saturdays and Sundays in our homemade kitchen in the basement for the kids, the pool room, the playroom, the pinball machine. So we have a lot of great memories Saturdays and Sundays in Port Richmond. But not to mention, Corley would make us clean every Saturday morning too. So, got
That's
to take the good
something.
and the bad.
That's something kids nowadays don't know. They don't understand. Like we had
They
we
don't
had
know it at
chores.
all. They all should go to Camp Corley. Their moms would be very proud.
That's great. So you went to MDG.
I went to Mother Divine Grace till 1987. And again, we had a small, mighty class. It was Michelle Stevens, Mark Standardo, Anthony Standardo, Nikki Briglio, Jimmy Conway. So we had a really interesting class. and then off to Hallahan. So I went to Hallahan and grad in 1988 through 91.
Very cool. You know, it's a shame I had that other YouTube channel and I had that Hallahan video like I was doing with North Catholic, and my
Yes.
whole channel got shot down or shut not shut down, shut down, and I lost every video. The
Oh,
Hallahan ones, the North Catholic ones. I lost
oh,
a lot of
that's
really, really good videos.
so Hallahan and Hallahan and Roman, but really Hallahan and North behind the scenes.
Yeah. Yeah. How about those days when you got the bus in the morning time to go to school? Where did all the girls congregate? Where was your
We
guys' corner?
Okay, so we would meet at Somerset and Thompson normally, and we would take the bus to Somerset and Kensington. And there we would get on the L. We would see the pretzel guy who was there every single morning. And at that time, it wasn't anything like it is today. We would get on the L, we would go to 13th Street. When we get off at 13th under the L, we would go to the local bagel store and wait in there. Sometimes call home and say we missed the charter and go home. Or we would get on our charter bus because the charter would pick us up at 13th and take us right to Hallingham.
So you know after school, um, even on the weekends,
Yep.
what was your guys' daily routine? What did you guys do outside, like playing wise? Did you guys do sports? You
Well,
cheerleading?
I was a cheerleader for Mother Divine Grace and played soccer for the Nationals, Philadelphia Nationals. So, played a lot of sports, cheerleading, soccer, and spent a lot of days at Carroll Schoolyard with you, my dear. And
Yes.
at Stokely Playground. That was my younger years. And then in the high school years, started to hang more at Cahawks, go on Cambria, and with those guys, and spent a lot of time sneaking into the AD club, the main event, Purgatory, all of those places, standing room only, where I ultimately met my husband when I was 19 in the standing room only. But probably shouldn't have been in there at 19, but whatever. Um, back then there, everybody got in. So we like to hang at Stokely. For the most part, most of our memories are at Carroll and Stokely, so a lot of kick the can, a lot of meeting in the alleys,
The
all of that
B-Wits.
fun stuff. The B-wits in the alley. Yep. The alley B-wits.
You know,
Oh
you,
God.
well, I mean, you're still down there. I did a video walking Richmond Street from Ann to Allegheny and
Okay.
everything getting all built, and like the standing room's still there, and it's like it's
Yes.
crazy. Like it brings back
That
so
will
much.
sell. He sat on that, which was probably a smart thing to do. I mean, I'm on I mean, I grew up at Almond and Birch. And then subsequently my parents divorced. I bought the house and I resold it 12 years ago because it was so big for me. I have two boys, so it was really a big house for just the four of us. And I built this home that I'm in now, which was Mikey Woodsack's, but another family that's a staple in our community. Mr.
Yeah,
Woodsack fixed all of our screens. There's not a screen in the neighborhood he didn't rescreen.
yeah.
And this house was his father's house that I live in, and bought this 3-story right next to Mrs. Standardo, Mr. Standardo. So still, but in this area, everything's so regentrified now. I mean, we went through a little bit of a period that was questionable, but they just recently sold a house on our block for over 300,000 for a row home. So yeah, but it's still different. Christmas Eve's different. Remember being younger with a family as big as mine, my father being having so many nieces and nephews, we used to go to midnight mass, all of us, and we would go to everyone's house after at midnight and just have a drink and celebrate, just like we did Sunday mass at 6 o'clock until they stopped it because we all didn't know how to behave in the back of the church. So then they finally stopped it. But it's different. It's regentrified. The property values are up, but the old nostalgia that we had is, you see people don't decorate nearly as much. It's not as their moral and compass has changed, where they have bikes now and dogs, where we have cars and kids.
Yeah.
So trying to integrate those two cultures together is very interesting. But as you said, you see me on the news a lot and you see me advocating for the neighborhood, but it's really advocating to try and bring those cultures together because If we're going to live together, we have to respect one another. And that's where we went wrong, because people who moved in felt as though we don't belong. And there's been a lot of struggle, but I think we've come a long way. I think dog parks have come up. Who would have ever thought, right?
Mhm.
So we have dog parks now. There's a lot, of L&I meetings. As a matter of fact, I'll be attending one tomorrow night, regarding the parking situation and things like that. But people are always like, "Oh, you live 10 blocks from Kensington." 10 blocks is a long way.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's my house I bought here for $100,000 13 years ago. I could leave it today for 275.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm not ashamed to say I'm still in Port Richmond. I'm a diehard. I make a nice living. I could leave Port Richmond, but I don't really have a desire to leave. So
It's tough because, like you said, you're born and raised there. You raise your own family there. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of memories, and it's not only just a gentrification, but we went through a tough time with drugs coming into the neighborhood. We lost a lot of good people, a lot of good friends
yes,
that
we
we
did.
grew up with.
Yes, we did.
You know,
Sadly, sad, very, very sad, and that's still very prevalent here. I'm a big advocate against the drug situation. We will not name any names, but there are some people in the neighborhood that need to have a reality check with that,
Mhm.
because they've allowed it. There's been a gateway to a lot of drugs here, and we lost very close friends. God rest Jimmy Soul. Jimmy Conway was in my class, and some really good people, and some of our really good friends are still walking the street,
Yeah,
sadly.
no, it's
And
tough. It's
it's
tough.
very tough to watch, and I always make sure I stop them and lecture them, and they usually run from me as soon as they see me, because they know they're going to get a lecture. But it's very, very sad. Drugs are everywhere. People are always like, how can you stay there? There's so many drugs. There's drugs everywhere. I'm a healthcare administrator, so I have a lot of locations throughout Pennsylvania and New Jersey. I see it everywhere. Every one of my locations have drug addicts out front. I mean, it's not isolated to Port Richmond.
Yeah.
It's funny. Someone said to me yesterday, "Oh, you're from Port Richmond. You must be Polish." I was like, "What? No, there's all kinds of sections of Port Richmond. We're segregated by our church nationality. You didn't know that?"
Well, if I'm correct, if I remember right, I think the Italian side was kind of like maybe Cambria or Monmouth Street was the
Correct.
borderline, and then when you went either Monmouth Street towards Allegheny, that's when it
Mhm.
started turning
Yes.
Polish.
Yeah, it turns Polish really right around Indiana, and then it gets really heavy. And I always called it suburban Port Richmond, above Allegheny Avenue. And yeah, so it's funny. Everybody now outside of our neighborhood sees Port Richmond as a Polish neighborhood, because pierogies and all of that
Yeah,
became so popular. So they forget our little Italian section that's still pretty strong, actually. Like this,
yeah.
the Longos are still here.
Mhm.
I mean, all of the Longos still live in Port Richmond. My brother Matthew still lives on Thompson Street. So a lot of us are still here. We call Thompson Street Cousins Row. They're all our cousins. So it's
Well,
pretty interesting.
and that's another thing that was unique to me about Port Richmond because no matter whatever block you lived on, you could have guaranteed you had an uncle, a cousin, an aunt, or somebody that either lived on that block or
Yes.
it's crazy. It's crazy.
But they were the best of times. I mean, think about it. The one thing growing up, because my dad was one of 16, my mom used to say, don't date anyone from the neighborhood. We don't know if you're related. So I'm always like, okay. So those Allie Bewitts were very questionable when we were younger. I'm like, oh, are we related? But I married outside the neighborhood, so we're safe. So
I guess we're kind of lucky back then. They didn't have that DNA stuff. You know what I mean?
yes. With you, it's funny you should say that. I did the DNA thing. And it's funny. I did it. And once you do it, whoever hits you as a match, it comes up. So a couple weeks ago, I get an alert that I had a match. So I opened it up. Guess who my match was?
I don't. Should I guess?
Thank God I wasn't with him when we were younger. Brian Fox.
Really?
I said, I called him up, and then he's like, "Are we related?" I was like, "I don't know. That's really awkward. Thank God we never kissed." But we
So-
came up as second cousins.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we were laughing, and my brother and him are best friends. So we're like, oh my
Yeah.
God, what? And I finally said, we better stop over analyzing to figure out who was with who, or not. We should just stay out of it. You know what I mean? But it's interesting to see.
So the holidays, uh, as a child,
Best holidays.
Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, Halloween. let's go back there and what was the holidays like at the Rispo house?
Oh my God, amazing. My mom had the neighborhood haunted house on Almond Street. We had the
I remember.
coffin. Yes,
I
the
stayed away
coffin.
from it.
Yeah, everyone would be like, oh. So Corley was very into our holidays. So we had this big home, but our holidays were the best holidays. So my mom also did the neighborhood Easter egg hunt at Powers Park. So we had
Which
that
was
every
spoke
year.
of. It was
Yes.
spoke of in that last interview.
Yeah. It was so much fun. My mom started that. My mom was a big neighborhood advocate back in the day. She did a lot of drug marches with Maurice's mom. Remember Maurice from
The guy used to
sell the Michael Jackson
yes,
pins with
yes,
the cart.
yes,
So
yes.
Maurice's mom's name was Ruby. And Maurice, that, back in our day, sadly it was segregated. I mean, we were a white neighborhood,
Yeah,
primarily white neighborhood, and above our Mingo was primarily black. But we also became friends with Maurice and Tony Singleton and all of them. So my mom became friends with Maurice's mom, and they became big advocates against drugs back then. They thought drugs were bad back then. They'd
yeah,
be around today. So we spent a lot of holidays doing a lot. My mom was very giving, so we took in a lot of people in the holidays, and which always in turn has made me that way. So I appreciate all of that. But we were very, very lucky. The Rispo kids were very, very lucky. We had a beautiful home and we had very, very nice holidays. However, my mom always made sure we gave back. A lot of people lived in the Rispo home over the years. The neighborhood people got thrown out of their homes. We won't mention who moved in at times because we always have room for everyone. So we have the best of memories. I actually just sent you a picture of our Saturday sleepovers we used to have with the Cohenkeviches on Birch Street.
yeah,
I mean, the Serbas, the Cohenkeviches, and the Longos, we would all really always be together because our parents were best friends. So we have the best of memories and holidays. Thanksgiving, all of the neighbors would come together in our house. So we had the best of memories. I often say if I could change anything, I would want the children of today to experience that because I
mhm,
think Sundays dinners and all of that has gone to the wayside. So the kids don't realize how many cousins they have, how many, you and I both know Salmon Street, Carroll School kick. I can always remember you always in the Carroll schools kicking a soccer ball,
yeah,
always against that damn wall with the big block on it. It would have the
yeah,
square spray paint it. So
yeah,
our kids kind of don't have that. And I said, if I could wish of anything, I would want my kids to just see what we had because Port Richmond was so unique. We
yeah,
were, we were a strong neighborhood, a very, very actually Catholic driven neighborhood, and we had really nice values and nice families. I mean, in my opinion, I don't have many bad memories,
yeah.
honestly.
I mean, like I said, we did school, and then after school, we had the basketball games from the schools that would always be
Yeah.
played at Samuel's, right? We'd all go up there and
I was the
watch our
captain of the cheerleading team, just so
see,
you know.
yeah, and
Ask
then
Mark Sandardo, I was his captain.
yeah, I mean, and then and the nonstop soccer that used to be played in the schoolyards, and
Nationals.
you
Oh,
know,
there were some battles with those soccer teams.
yeah, yeah. I
Funny.
tell my kids a lot when I started the Philadelphia Nationals up here in the Northeast.
I thought that was
Actually,
funny.
yeah, I here as a matter of fact, I have sitting right here with me. This is a trophy from the Philadelphia Nationals, 1981 and 82.
Oh, well, I probably have one of those.
You probably do. You know what? My mom was cleaning out her house and just getting rid of stuff, and she says, "John, you got to come over here. I got to show you what I got." And next thing you know, I had all these trophies from the Nationals and stuff like that. And
Do you remember our jackets from the Nationals? The blue
yes,
corduroy with the big
yes,
soccer ball. I
yes.
probably still have that, John.
But it's like, but this is what growing up in Port Richmond was all about. Like I said, I mean, honestly, if there was to be a movie, it would probably be something along the lines of Bronx Tale or something like that.
Yes. Yes. We've had think about, I often say, like, where did we lose? Where did things change? You know what I mean? You try and think and isolate. I do think when Sean Daly was murdered, the neighborhoods, the culture changed a little bit, I think. And then I remember, I'm very good friends with Mark Standardo growing up. We went all through grade school together. Mina was my neighbor. So when Philomena got sick and we decided to do the block party. So it was me, Tommy, Mark Lavelle, Whitey, a couple of us. we're like, oh, let's just have a small neighborhood block party. We need to show Mark and Mina that we're really going to be supportive. That is that very first time in many years when that block party turned into almost a national news story, right?
Yeah.
Of thousands of people who came back. That's really what Port Richmond's about.
No.
The one thing you can always say about Port Richmond, you can be gone for many, many years, but when you're down, we're
Yeah.
always there.
Yeah.
That never changes, never.
And some of the things I'm sure you can talk chat about too and share was one of the beginning of the summer. It was almost like a reunion too, per se, was the MDG festival.
I was just going to say some of our best memories are we all had to make it to the festival, did we not? And if we would get in trouble that week, we would pray we weren't punished at the festival time.
Yeah.
And I think it really draws us back still every year. I mean, I still feel compelled no matter where I am, because I subsequently have a shore house in Wildwood, and no matter if we're down in Wildwood or not, as you do as well at a shore point, I always feel compelled to come back for one night of the festival because
Yes.
I feel like I feel lost if we don't support it or even get to see everyone. And this, sadly, this past week, our Gina passed. She was the meatball roller at
I
MDG Festival.
I probably have to see to remember.
You would know our Gina. She rolled the meatballs, plus she made the pizza. She was the pizza
Okay.
lady. Her funeral's actually Friday, so I think the Italian Festival kicked off our summers for many years. Remember back in the day when they would have the whip it rides and all of that when we were
Yeah.
younger?
Yeah.
They would shut down the street. And I love that we still have that. And I love that St. George still battles us to have theirs at the same time, so competitive, St. George. They always used to try and beat us in basketball. They never could either. So just
You
never
know,
could.
when I started these videos, again, I start pondering things and trying to reminisce about a lot of things. And one of the things that popped up in my mind too, besides the festival, was the carnivals at Cahock's.
Yeah.
That
We
was a
had
huge thing.
best carnivals, the Gravitron. Whose parents would let them on that goddamn ride today? Like, where were our parents that we were on this dirty ride with no seatbelt secures? Like, I always think, Mom, where were you? These rides, none of us should have been on those rides in the Cahock's car. Nothing safe about those rides, that's for sure. But that definitely was a meeting point. And I think it kind of helped blend the two communities. Remember, I mean, this is like the elephant in the room that people don't want to discuss. And today, race is so highly discussed in every aspect of our life, sadly, because sadly, the people want to always make it about that. But it started to bring the communities together with Marie
Yeah.
selling things in our neighborhood and Tony coming to Cahock. So I think that it helped a little bit to bring the communities together, in a way that, today where we are, even though people from outside Port Richmond say different, we are a community that embraces every culture. And no matter who you are, what color you are, or what you identify as, it's definitely a very embracing community, even though
Yeah.
people don't like to think that. It's changed a lot.
Yeah. Well, again, in our younger years, as young kids, preteen, like we weren't exposed to being with
Nope.
other races and stuff like that.
No,
But we were lucky geographically because we've met some really good people,
that's right.
that were just on the other side of Aramingo Avenue. And with that being said, that takes me into the next part is going into our teenage years where all this stuff started happening. What
Yep.
what was your routine like coming home from school on Friday? Who you
So
hung out with?
coming home from school on Friday, getting ready to obviously get ready for hours just to go sit at Stokely Playground, right? And then walk to Carroll School, go to Cahock's, kind of make our rounds, but playing heavily with Kick the Can and all of that. That was like I would say they're our best memories. And then of course the summertime, we all kind of made it a point to get down the shore. Clearly we didn't go for senior summers. We looked forward to senior week.
Yeah.
Nobody was affording senior summer.
No.
So we did a lot. I did a lot of babysitting to save up for those, senior, weeks and things like that. But I spent a lot of time with Dawn Fay, who's now married to Johnny Augers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Dawn Fay, Bridget Toman, Michelle, Dot Longo, Big Girl, Nicole Scrillo. So a lot of hanging on the corner. My God, I think back now how freezing cold it was, but we were never cold.
And it was like
We
a
were never
fashion
cold.
show.
Oh yeah, like literally, like we would be dressed to the nines to stand on the corner, but it was the best of times, the best of times. Like our parents, we would go in Joan Stendardo's house. I mean, poor Berkey, we were always in Berkey's
Yeah,
house,
yeah,
So the Halloween parties that Nikki used to have, the Halloween sleepovers on Somerset when they lived on Somerset.
yeah.
Some of, I talk to people and I'm sure you feel this way. When you were younger, did you think everyone had the same? Didn't you think every neighborhood must be the same? Like when I was younger, I was like, every neighborhood must be like this. No,
I never really thought about it until my late teens. You know what I mean? Where
yeah,
when we got to experience outside of Port Richmond.
yes. Going to high school, I think that was the eye opener, right?
Yeah,
We were in Mother Divine Grace. I mean, listen, nobody has to be ashamed of the fact that they were not exposed to other cultures. I mean,
yeah,
it is what it is. That's just the way the world was back then.
yeah.
So, being at Mother Divine Grace, obviously, you had to be Italian to go there.
Mhm.
So, we would go to, and now our parents stick us in Alien, which
Yeah,
is every culture you could possibly imagine, right? It's a melting pot of cultures. So, it was a really big eye opening experience for me because I was involved in a lot of sports and a lot of clubs and all of that. So I met everyone. So I'll never forget my very first best friend in Hallahan was two girls. One was black, one was Hispanic. I remember coming home and saying, my girlfriends are coming over this weekend. And then walking in the door and my dad be like, what's happening? I'm like, what? Like I saw nothing wrong with it. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And then it was just like so accepting after that point because it was to us going into high school, you had to be colorblind, but then you start talking to everyone there and they were like, I'm like, oh my God, we have the best neighborhood. Come see us, blah, blah, blah. And I asked them about their neighborhood and I'm like, oh, what? You don't do that? You guys don't get together and stand on a corner all night? You don't go to the famous BFP parties, backfield parties?
yeah,
When we used to have our radio and our red cups. It's very unique, honestly,
yeah,
more unique than people think,
yeah.
So,
Well, we had the backfield parties, backfield
oh,
Makevich. You had
best
the
parties
Polish,
ever.
yeah, best the Polish American dances, nativity
Yeah.
dances.
Nativity dances and right to Tony's Pizza for a special. And then, I mean, if we were really, really, really feeling like walking, we would go to Ernie's, right? We would go to Ernie's on
Yeah, a
Aramego.
slice and a soda,
A slice and a soda. That's all we could
$1.50.
afford. $1.50. It was the best. Can I get $1.50 for a special? But nativity dances, everybody would grab. How we all fit in Tony's Pizza after a nativity dance is beyond me. I think 5 people fit in there now. We used to pile in, but it was the best. I mean, I also think not having neighborhood dances really takes away from the nostalgia of a neighborhood, but I see the liability with it now too.
It's yeah, yeah,
Like you gotta, unfortunately the world's changed a lot,
yes.
so it's
So out
sad
of
and
all these
that's sad.
things, out of all these things, what would growing up in Port Richmond? What's one thing you look back on that could have been one of the memorable experiences for you growing up in Port Richmond?
The friendships, the friendships that I still have today, like the friendships that I know that I'll have for the rest of my life. So I would say 100% hands down, the friendships that were created and the overall long term, like just for example, I could not see you for 3 years and be like, hey, we pick up right where we left off. It's just a
Yeah,
whole different breed of people. And wearing a North Catholic sweatshirt, everyone knows someone from North. Wearing a Hallahan sweatshirt, it's just it's the best feeling. I can't even getting in. It's almost comparable to being in the pit at North Catholic for a wrestling match.
yeah, yeah.
It's that nostalgia that you can't put into words. It's ineffable. You can't put it in the words.
So let me ask you this. What would you think would be I think you may have touched base on this, but what would you think would be the difference from the Port Richmond we grew up in compared to the Port Richmond now?
Family values. Family values. And not saying that in a bad way. I think that the regentrified era in the millennial era that's moved in here now, they were just raised different. They remember most of the people that are moving here now come from a suburban atmosphere or another
Yeah.
state where their values are completely different. And when I say different, that's all they are. They're not right
Right.
or wrong. They're just different. And I think that they're not having the same family values brings a different culture. And in turn, people turn that right into animosity
Hmm.
instead of sitting down and discussing it and embracing the fact that they have dogs, we have kids, they
Yeah.
have bikes, we have
Yeah.
cars.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just different. If we could all, it's kind of like Republican and Democrat, right? If
Hmm.
we could all just sit down and have a discussion and have the
Open
respect,
minded.
be open minded, be respectful of one
Right.
another's opinions, everyone would be fine. Everyone would be fine. Just stop disrespecting one another. And I say that from both sides, honestly, because the old school Port Richmond people are like hell bent against them,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
the regentrified get very defensive. They don't want us here. It's
Yeah.
sad because if everyone would sit down, they would learn a lot from us about our neighborhood. And we would probably learn a lot from them about the different culture that they bring today.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just different.
Yeah.
I just
So
wish they would pick their weeds. That bothers me.
no, and listen, hey, even up here now, unfortunately, with mine and Amanda's work, we had to, uproot out of our area.
You're right.
But yeah, it happens up here too.
Hate
It's
it.
changing up here in the Northeast.
My
You know,
husband pays someone to pick the weeds on my whole street just so I'm not in a bad mood, I think. I can't handle, why don't you pick? You know what? I'm the block captain, and I finally said to someone, why don't you pick the weeds? You know what they said to me? It's greenery. I
oh
said, it's
wow,
weeds. It's weeds. It's not greenery. There's a complete difference. They're weeds.
that's
But I
crazy.
mean, it's some of the small things, but you know what? I solved that problem. We de-weed our whole street.
Nice, nice. Well, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you wanna mention about growing up?
No, no, I greatly appreciate you having me on. I love talking about my neighborhood then, now, and
Yeah,
all of it. And always love seeing you. And make sure you send love to my favorite girl on the
I
earth,
will.
your
She's
wife.
downstairs. She's making dessert. We had. Let me tell you, I hit the jackpot marrying this girl. Uh,
I'm sure she's sending me some, right? Like, is that what she's saying?
listen, hey, I'm just give her a ring. Tell her to,
4 more years, right? 4 more
yeah,
years.
3 years and 7 months. Well, that's till Caden graduates. But you're always more than welcome to come out
Oh,
to
she
Belize.
knows. She knows. I told her, I said, I'm coming to visit. I'm coming to visit.
Well, Jen, I want to thank you again for taking time away from your family
No, thank
and
you.
and talking about growing up in Port Richmond. It's really important because we're the next elders now. So
That's it. And they
instead
should
of
have these videos when they're older to look back
yeah,
on.
and instead of these stories going to wayside and talking at the bar of it, so
I
it's
wish
on
we
YouTube.
had this with our grandparents. So, but
Yes, yes,
I appreciate you doing it, and I'm sure it will be around for a long time.
very cool. Thank you, Jen, and
All right, honey.
we'll
Have a
have us
great
up in a
night.
little bit.
All righty.
All
Bye
right,
bye.
see ya.